One to Mentor Mondays. This is a first in a series of opportunities for Economic Club scholars to come together and network with the Economic Club community, which includes our distinguished leaders of members, alumni, and emerging leaders. We're really excited for the very first one to be focused on what we hope is a very relevant topic, self-care, making sure that we are focusing on our health and wellness in the midst of challenging times. We appreciate all of you for being a part of this and really looking forward to the discussion today. My name is Marissa Mahoney. If you don't already know, I am the Senior Manager of Education Initiatives here at the Economic Club. Again, we're excited to have each and every one of you. We have some awesome members and mentors who've been involved in the program for a while now, as well as a lot of new folks who are joining to really support our scholars. Scholars, we're excited to see you and hope all is well with you also, and hope that you get a lot out of this important discussion. I want to allow our Vice President of Education, Gina Adams, to join us. She is also the Senior Vice President of Government and Regulatory Affairs at FedEx Corporation. I want to make sure she can address us briefly as we kick off this important series of Mentor Mondays that we hope will be beneficial to all involved. Gina?
Thank you, Marissa, and welcome everybody. And thank you all for joining us for, as Marissa said, our first Mentor Monday, which is this series of virtual gatherings to support our Rubenstein Economic Club scholars with significant, relevant discussion topics and networking opportunities. It is wonderful to see a cross-section of the Economic Club community here today. I see members and alumni and emerging leaders, and of course, our scholars. And during these very challenging times, it is important for us to come together like this to still provide a space for learning, connecting, and mentoring so that our scholars feel supported and have the tools that they need to succeed in their college journeys. And I know I'm not alone in feeling busier than ever, if that's at all possible. But I think it's therapeutic, at least for me, to step outside of my own situation and focus on someone else, in this case, our scholars, to help them get through a time that maybe some of us who have been working for a while can handle a little bit better than they are. But it's still important for all of us to take care of ourselves. So I'm excited about this topic as well. So with that, back over to you, Marissa, and I'm wishing everybody a wonderful group discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gina. Great to have you, and thank you for those encouraging words. I'm going to kick off just by making sure everyone knows the flow of today. This is our first one, so hopefully this will become more of a habit. But our first 30 minutes or so of this session will be our panel discussion. And so I'll introduce our panelists, then begin to moderate a discussion with them. Then we will go into having some Q&A. So use your chat box. You can use the chat function, or you can unmute yourself to ask a question once the panel is done. And I will open it up for questions. So you'll definitely have the opportunity to do that. And then around 5:35 or so, we'll all do breakout rooms. And so it'll be an awesome opportunity for everyone to gather together in small groups to really have a more smaller, intimate discussions about the topic at hand, but also to network, connect, and get to know each other. So we're excited about that opportunity and hope that you guys are as well. So just to get us started, I'm going to introduce our wonderful panelists. First I'm going to go by alphabetical order. But first we have Michelle Palmer. She is a nationally recognized expert on trauma, grief, and mental health. She's executive director of the Wendt Center for Loss and Healing, where she's been since August 2012. This center is the premier resource for restoring hope and healthy functioning to adults, teens, and children who are coping with grief, loss, and trauma in the Washington, D.C. area. Michelle brings nearly 20 years of clinical and managerial experience, including work with sexual assault survivors and at-risk youth, designing and implementing professional trainings, and providing direction and oversight to federally funded and other programs impacting the health and well-being of the region's wellness residents. Thank you, Michelle, for joining us. We're excited to have you. Secondly, we have Marsha Ralls, who's a member of the Economic Club and is the founder and CEO of the Phoenix Wellness Retreat, which was launched in 2018 to serve and create a space for personal inspiration, growth, and life transformation. She's a leader in hospitality, wellness, and the fine arts space. From a young early age, Marsha recognized the power of community. She has a background in wellness and fitness and a connection to art and nature. She's used her knowledge to design a place for people to reconnect with their bodies, heart, and conscience and the natural beauty of the world around them. Marsha is a certified yoga instructor and mindfulness coach, and she's been recognized by multiple organizations for her commitment to entrepreneurship and community service. And finally, we have Reverend Jonathan Wade. Reverend Wade is a charismatic and young leader, intuitive thinker, and a gifted communicator, serving as a senior pastor of Macedonia Baptist Church of Baltimore City. Pastor Wade was born in Baltimore, Maryland, but spent a majority of his life as a Washingtonian, where he graduated from Benjamin Banneker Academic High School. He holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in philosophy from Hampden City College in Virginia, and a Master's of Divinity degree from the Howard University School of Divinity, as well as 2 certificates in executive leadership for ministers from Howard University School of Business. He's worked as a consultant for many organizations, and currently he works with the Economic Club of Washington, D.C. as a member of our Alumni Leadership Council, working to support Economic Club scholarship recipients with mentoring, networking, and professional development. And he is a 2011 Economic Club scholar. Welcome, Reverend Wade. So I want to start off our panel with Marsha. Would you lead us in a mindfulness exercise? I think that's something that will all help us be present in this particular moment. Hand it over to Marsha.
Thank you, Marissa. Welcome, everyone. Please sit up straight. And if you can join us and put your camera on, we would love to see your beautiful face, to be a part of the community today. Sit up straight, put your hands flat on your thighs, feet on the floor. And we're going to inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. We'll do this 5 times. Inhale. Exhale. Slowly inhale. And exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. So look around the room for a minute and let your eyes rest on one particular object. And don't try to let any thoughts that come in, just let them go, but focus on this object. Look at the color, the shape. If thoughts start to come into your mind, just notice them, but let them go. Take one more breath in and release. And welcome to the session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Marsha. That was very relaxing and very helpful for us all to be focused on this important conversation. Can you just give us a little bit of background on why breathing and focusing is important to just settle our minds?
So the breath work, anytime you start to feel anxious or nervous or excited, it's good to stop and center yourself and take the breath. It will calm the nerves, but also it will help you be present. So you can't be thinking about the things, the schoolwork you need to do, or you haven't finished something, or you need to call somebody. Instead, you're focused on the present moment. And it seems really simple, but I've been doing this work for many years. And it's really what brings me back to let go of all of these thoughts, because we all have them, and to really focus on being present, whether I'm with one person or here with all of you today. That's what makes the difference. And it's been really helpful for me. So I would encourage, especially our scholars, I'm going to send a list of resources that are all free online that will help you master some of these tools and skills.
Thank you, Marsha. Michelle, I would love to start off with you to ask about your perspective on just this year. 2020 has been quite a year. And what have you seen this year been as far as it affecting our mental health, our physical health, and how those issues have been more prevalent? We've heard different articles of people experiencing more anxiety or depression or other issues, and just the subject of mental health has definitely been prevalent because of that. Can you expound on that and what you've seen from your perspective?
Sure. Hi guys, thanks for having me. Whoa, 2020. Whew. So what we are seeing are increases in instances of people reporting symptoms that are related to anxiety, depression. We're also seeing instances of symptoms that are increasing in people who are already navigating sort of what can be some difficult waters with depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues. I think about this because the Wendt Center has a focus on grief and trauma. I think it's really, though, important for people to really actually understand that the COVID pandemic is a collective grief experience. We are all grieving a lot of different things. And so lots of time we think about grief in the context of death. And while certainly COVID certainly has brought that, unfortunately, to 208,000 people, it's also a lot of other losses that I think people don't actually necessarily assign or associate with grief, but they are absolutely grief experiences. And so those are things like not getting to go back to school, missing big sort of important milestones like graduation and prom, homecoming, rush week if you're in a fraternity and that's what they do. Is it rush week? I went to a college that did not have fraternities and sororities. Is it rush week? Is that what that is? Okay, good. But these sort of life experiences that many of us had planned and frankly had taken for granted are no longer available to us right now. And so we are grieving those opportunities. And for many people, this pandemic, specifically this quarantine, is also a traumatic event. Not for everyone. Here's the interesting thing about trauma, is that trauma is actually not an event. It is somebody's response to an event. And how we respond to any given event is comprised of two things. One is sort of our hardwiring, how we came into this world, what our demeanor is, what our personality is. And the other is our soft wiring, which is our experiences. And those two things combined impact how we understand any given situation, and also whether or not a situation may be what one would consider a trauma. I think the other thing that I think is important to think about as you're sort of pulling back and looking at whatever your experience and your people's experience is, be it your friends or family, whomever, is that we all have emotional bandwidth. And at any given time, that emotional bandwidth has a lot of room to sort of move because we're kind of things are going out a-okay and we're moving along. Then there's times where our emotional bandwidth is super stretched because there's challenges and stresses and they're piling up. And so we may, depending on how you were when this thing happened, was your bandwidth already emotionally stretched? And has it taken you like way beyond what you feel is comfortable or manageable? Or has it been, did you go into it with some flexibility and you've been able to kind of stretch and then shrink and stretch and shrink as needed? Because I think we have a tendency to have some people's negative voice is louder in their head than others. My negative voice is super loud. And I named her the meanest sixth grade teacher ever, Miss Hadala. So Miss Hadala yaps at me real loudly and constantly with a lot of criticism and judgment. And so for me, it's super important to remind myself to show myself and other people grace, because I know for me, I actually went into this pandemic with an emotional bandwidth that was already really stretched. And so this has taken me beyond what I normally find that I can easily cope with. And it's really asked me to find even different or additional ways to be in this space of this pandemic so that I am nice to myself, but mostly I'm nice to all of the people who I love in the world and don't want to be snapping at constantly.
That's helpful, Michelle. Thank you for covering just the importance of understanding our emotional health and well-being and how those things are connected by the events of the world, but also within our lives. And what you said about negativity sort of stuck out to me as well, because we know it's important for us to understand and notice when we're going into negative thinking spaces and sort of pivot and try our best to pivot at least and look for hopeful ways to be more positive. So Reverend Wade, I'd love for you to chime in about just recommendations you have about finding hope and positivity and being grateful when it's easier to be negative.
Yeah, I think to be fair to anybody who's going through this, one of the things that's very important is to think of moments in your past. I think we sometimes lose context of how resilient we can be even in our toughest of times. And so sometimes going through, if you're a journal writer and going through some of your old journal entries and reading about some of the things that you've overcome in your past, to give yourself a little bit of pat on the back and kindness to yourself to say, you have the fortitude to keep moving forward, right? And so sometimes having context of your past is what allows you to have some grace with yourself and to keep context that it's difficult, it's tough, but I've overcome other mountains in my past before. Other thing is to, in light of just trying to keep hope, is to bask in the presence, right? To be grateful for the little things, right? I think to Michelle's point, not trying to take for granted just even the simplest of stuff, right? I'm just grateful that I can cook at home, right? There's some people who don't even have those privileges, and I think that just really basking in the little things is always something that brings context. But dreaming, for me, dreaming always helps, right? It sucks for everybody, right? And I think that one of the things that's very helpful is to always keep dreaming about, okay, what's the future? I know things aren't ideal now, but I know that there's going to be a tomorrow. And so bringing imagination back into your life, into your space. What is life gonna look like for you after all this is over? What are the things that you got to make up for? Start dreaming about those kinds of things, and that offers hope and context. Those milestones that you missed in 2020. Well, there's no reason why you can't do it in 2021. So keep planning, right? Keep those plans and agendas all together, and those are just certain things that I do and I've seen others do that really helps continuously bring hope for us.
Thank you, Jonathan. So key to be grateful, and just, you said contextualize was really also important. Like, not always having a sort of a tunnel view of things, because it really is about the context and the fact that we are resilient and we've been through things before. Marsha, could you talk a little bit more about how our physical and emotional health are connected, and what are some important tools or resources you recommend for folks to maintain those on a regular basis?
Sure. So I'd love to share sort of my daily routine that I think has been extremely helpful. And it ties into all the things with fitness and mindfulness. So think about this. If you wake up in the morning, you grab your phone, and the first thing on your phone is bad news. That news may not be the best, but boy, how you want to start your day. But if you wake up and you don't look at your phone first thing, and you have a journal next to your bed, I'm happy to send any of you a journal if you don't have one. And write in that journal the things you're grateful for. Grab something, it can be a Bible, it can be your favorite book, it can be really anything that's positive. And read for about 5 minutes. I do 10 minutes of reading, 10 minutes of writing, and 10 minutes of reflecting. But I would suggest to start out with 3 minutes, then to grow to 5 minutes, but try to do it every day, because it really does set you up for a successful day. If your mindset is positive, because we all have negativity, we all have challenges, and they're going to come to us during the day. And the breathing that we started with, if you do that breathing, I did put the link in the chat, if you do present moment awareness, it will help you where the stresses don't affect you as much, and you can focus on the things and all of these positive things. And I'm a really good example, because I went through a tough time. I came out of it and really rose from the ashes, and I've had so much success. And I knew what to do when I was going through a tough time, but I didn't do it. So the other thing is to make sure you have a community. Before you guys got on the call, I did share that unfortunately my husband and I both had COVID. He was in the ICU. We had a prayer group globally that I just have so much faith that is what brought him home. And we're both completely healthy with no side effects. But make sure you have a community. Could be your fellow students, can be your family, but to have that, forum, prayer groups, a community that you can count on that's there for you is really critical. And just nutrition and exercise. It's easy to grab something that's not healthy. We're all guilty of it. But if you can make sure that you have whole foods, fresh fruits, vegetables, and do some kind of exercise. Get out and take walks. Again, I'm going to give you guys resources that are all free, that have classes online. Actually, one of the benefits of COVID has been I've opened my eyes to all kinds of incredible classes that I would have never gone to or taken the time to do. I got the happiness course that Yale offers, which was great, and I would suggest it to any of you. They've offered it free of charge, and it's amazing. But it gives you a lot of great skills that if you just pick one or two, but the one that I think for me at least that's been the most helpful is a morning ritual to set yourself up for success first thing in the morning. And don't grab your phone, grab your journal, grab a positive book, and just, I'll share my email. I'm always here and available, but I would love to hear if you start to feel the difference in your daily routine, if you start your day off with some positive energy and intentions and the things you're grateful for.
Thank you, Marsha. That's really key. The phone can be a big distraction and set us in the wrong mood if we start off with that in the day. So that's a great reminder. I have one final question for both Michelle and Jonathan, and then we'll open it up for the audience to ask questions either in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask it live. So get your questions ready. But my last question to both Michelle and Jonathan are, do you have tips for scholars to help them improve sort of their focus and concentration? There's a lot of distraction now. You know, studying virtually can be just a completely different animal than going to class as usual. So what tips do you have for staying focused and managing stress for our scholars? Michelle first and then Jonathan.
So I think, sort of to Marsha's point, building in a routine is super, super important. And it certainly starts in the morning, but you really do want to the extent possible, have a routine that you go through in your day so that there's a plan. Because if there's not a plan, it gets real easy to get waylaid. And once you get waylaid, it's hard to pull yourself back. And so it's best to try and avoid that altogether. The other thing I think that's super important is actually getting up, standing up, walking. You need a change of scenery. So it's not great to sit at your computer for 8 hours and the only break you're taking is to pee. That is not a fantastic way to go through your day. And so really getting up, stretching your legs. And I get that so many people are super, super busy. And one of the things that we talk about a lot at the Wendt Center is figuring out those micro moments where you can actually just ground yourself. And so, you know, a really like basic micro moment is if you don't have a dishwasher, I don't have a dishwasher. And so I wash the dishes. And while I'm washing the dishes, I actually concentrate on how good the warm water feels on my skin and the soap and sort of how nice it looks when all of my dishes are done and organized. But that's something that's just a micro moment. I have to do the dishes anyway. So rather than kind of resenting the fact that I have to do them, actually trying to get present and sort of get grounded in my body and using water and sight to help me do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. Jonathan?
Yeah, I think for me, focus, I've always approached focus as a skill that has to be developed. It's not something that comes natural. So really, one of the biggest myths is that people can multitask. That's actually not true. Multitasking actually doesn't work. Your brain just does a really good job of jumping from one thing to another. So multitasking doesn't actually exist. And so it's counterintuitive to try to do multiple things at one time, right? So really teaching yourself to actually zone in and then also strategizing breaks. So if you have, if you got classes or you have meetings, actually put in your calendar 10 minutes to do that walk that Michelle talked about, or to take some time to breathe, like Marsha showed us earlier, where you actually strategize the breaks, give yourself some code switching. If you need to, lock your phone away. It seems dramatic, but sometimes you have to take some dramatic steps in order to get some results. So get you a lockbox, get your safe, ask somebody in the house to do the code and give yourself 30 minutes, focus in, and there might be some initial anxiety or some phobia attached to that, but that's normal, that's okay. But for me, focus is a skill and it's like a muscle. So the more you do it, the better you'll be at accessing that tool when you need it. So those would be my tips.
Awesome. Those are great tips. I'll be using some of those myself. Any questions from the audience, scholars, alum, anyone? We do have one in the chat that I'll read. From Aisha, she's asking, do you recommend doing a routine to-do list in the morning or the night before? That's for anyone.
So I would say the night before. If you write out everything, you'll have a better night's sleep One of the recommendations, if you're having a hard time sleeping, is to get up, write everything you need to do, and then go back to bed. And usually it helps with sleeping.
Thank you. Another question from another alum who's asking, what are the key elements of your routine? So everyone, of course, has their own routine, but what are some of the sort of the key principles that you make sure are ingrained or you recommend are ingrained?
So I'll say, so for me, I try my best to do everything before 9 o'clock p.m. So I like to get up early, so I'm up at around in between 4:30 or 4:45 in the morning. I like to go to the gym, get some sweat in. I don't do it as much because of COVID, but right before COVID, go to the gym, and that really just energizes me throughout the day. And then I'm also okay with surrendering the fact that if everything doesn't get done on the to-do list for that day, it's okay, right? But at 9:30 or 9 o'clock, everything stops. And that typically helps me keep a body rhythm. So around 8 o'clock, 8:30, I start feeling sleepy, start getting tired. So it's like, okay, 9 o'clock's here. It's time for me to put everything away. And so that just, typically is how I schedule my day. So by 9 o'clock, whatever isn't done, we'll just have to leave it up to the Lord and we'll take care of it tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. Anyone else want to share on the panel on that?
Michelle?
I actually do exactly what Reverend Wade does, except because I'm 51, I roll in at like 7 p.m. It all shuts off because by 9, this old lady's asleep. But it is, I think it's super important. I actually also have a, much to my friends and family's chagrin, I have a no calling me past 8 o'clock. I spend a lot of my day talking. And so by 8 o'clock, I'm talked out and the quality of the conversation is gonna suck. I know it is. So let's just set the expectation, have a clear expectation. I will tell you, I got a little bit of pushback on it, particularly from my mom, but now it's been like 2.5 years and she's totally fine with it. And everyone knows, like, don't violate the 8 o'clock rule.
Boundaries, that's so key. We're getting a lot of great questions here. Okay, the next one, which I think is really great for scholars. What about procrastination? Do you guys have any tips to avoid that or just not do that as much?
Well, I would share to have maybe an accountability partner, or if you do a list of the things you want to get done, share it with the parent, share it with a friend, but be accountable, because if it's important enough that you want it to be done, then you want to be accountable to get it done. That's one of the things that helps me. I have a group every Monday. We meet and we talk and we have goals and we hold each other accountable. And usually if I know I have to do it, I'm going to get it finished. And if I'm having problems, they're there to support me, whether it's resources I don't have. But I think to, again, write it down and be accountable, have somebody that holds you to it. But also don't beat yourself up, because we all are doing the best we can. So if you don't get it done, you have to be kind to yourself and love yourself, and it'll be there tomorrow and you can do it the next day.
I would also recommend, if depending upon the project, do it in smaller steps. There's some things, you'll never get done if you procrastinate it. I remember, 10-page research papers are never fun the night before. So, if you can do certain steps beforehand, and I'll be transparent, coming up with a sermon every week can be very tempting to wait till Friday night or Saturday morning to get working on that. So for me, putting things in steps where I do a little bit on Tuesday, do a little bit on Wednesday, do a little bit on Thursday, so that I'm not, rushing at the finish line to have something for Sunday morning. So that would be another tip as well.
Great, Thank you, guys. So we have a few more questions, a couple more questions in the chat, but I would encourage those people to bring those questions to their breakout rooms, which we're about to do now. So just a couple notes about the breakout rooms and breakout sessions. Those conversations should be organic. There'll be a staff member in each room just in case. But we want to make sure everyone sort of goes around the room and introduces themselves, get to know each other, and just continue the conversation from there, or just share your thoughts about what you learned from the panel today. So we'll do that in just 1 second. And then after that breakout room, though, we won't come back to the main room. So we'll close out in that breakout room. So I just want to thank everyone for being a part of this awesome program. And I want to thank our panelists for their amazing insights and just really sound advice. I hope that each of you continue to learn something from this and will take it with you to your next session and beyond. But we'll go into our breakout rooms now, and then at 6 p.m. we'll go off to our evenings. But good evening to everyone who I don't end up in a room with. But thank you again for all of your participation, and thank you again to our panelists.